Hey there, friendos, and welcome back to part 2 of the Motion Graphics Creation Tutorials mini-series. This is part 2, as I said. In part 1, basically what we did is we created our new project, and we brought in the audio file, and we created some markers to help let us know where the certain beats for the animation are going to be. And then we went on to create our blueprint background. Alright, so in this episode, we're going to create all the other graphics that we're going to be using. If you want to follow along with this project, I actually have the project files available to download. I'll leave a link in the description where you can find them. Alright, so for this second episode, we're going to start off. First thing we're going to do is take all our blueprint parts. Actually, we're going to take their blueprint texture PC, the one that we attached the displacement map to. We're going to move that above our blueprint parts layer. We're going to select all three of these, and we're going to Shift Command C to pre-compose them. And we'll just call this Blueprint Main. And you know what? We'll put 2 dashes in front, always on top. There we go. And we'll hit OK. All right, so let's take away our paper texture here. And we're going to start by creating the shape layer for the LEDs. Now what I'm going to do is make sure that no layers are selected. We've kind of been through this already. Make sure no layers are selected. And we're going to go to the rectangle tool. And we're actually, like I mentioned in the first episode, we're actually going to use this grid to create the graphics. It'll just be easier this way. So with the rectangle tool, what I'm going to do is go probably 2 full blocks over and then bring this out. And we're going to make this 1 block high. We're going to bring that to the other side right there. 2 blocks in from each side. All right, so we're going to take the stroke. We're actually going to turn that off. We're going to click on the word and then click on none. And then hit OK. And we're actually going to fill this with a kind of like a light gray, maybe about 70-ish% gray. All right, so our shape layer, the actual layer, we're going to call LEDs. All right, so our first rectangle, this is actually going to be like the strip that the actual LED is going to be on. So we'll just call this strip. So what we can do is duplicate this by hitting Command D. Make sure we're duplicating the actual strip. All right, Command D. Now we have strip 2. Let's change this to LED. And we're going to open that up. We're going to go to rectangle path 1. And we're going to unlink the chain. And again, we have X and Y. In the Y, we're going to type in 33.3333 if you want. That'll be a third of the strip in height. And that'll automatically go into the center of it. Now for the LED, we actually want to change the color. We're going to make this like an orange color. A nice reddish orange, deep orange thing right there. Something like that. All right, so the next step is we're going to create the cut marks for the LEDs. And basically we're going to have a cut mark every 2, or I guess 20 blocks, or 10 blocks, whatever unit. 2 of these big guys, 2 of the big blocks. So for this, what we're going to do is make sure the LEDs layer is selected. We're going to go to our pen tool, and let's zoom in a bunch. All right, so we're going to go 2 lines in. We're going to go click, hold down Shift, and click just above the actual LED, and boom, we have a straight line. Now for this, we're going to select our shape layer, and we're going to call this cut marks. And we're going to make sure that it's selected, and we're going to change the fill. We're actually going to get rid of the fill. And we're going to change the stroke to be black. And we're going to make this, we'll go with 3 for now. And if you want to adjust, you can do this. I always hold down Shift when moving. That way it only goes in one axis. You know, you can bring this to wherever you want it to be. I'm just going to undo that. It's fine the way it is. Actually, I'm going to switch this to 2. I'm going to do 2 pixels. All right, so let's go back to fit up to 100%. And I'm going to hit Shift Command H. That'll get rid of all the overlays and all that. And we can see what we've done. All right, so we need more lines. This line needs to go down here, and it needs to go every 2 blocks across. So the way we can do this very easily. And this is actually going to be something that we use a lot in this episode. So we're going to click on the LEDs, make sure we're selected on cut marks, and then go add a repeater. This will add it to the actual cut marks and not the entirety of the layer. Now you can see we have 3 copies going this way. But what we want is actually what I want to do personally is I like to do the one above and then below and then repeat that over. So we're only going to do 2 copies. Now to get this to go down instead of to the side, we can open up Transform Repeater 1. Now make sure it's Transform Repeater 1 because you also have Transform Cut Marks right below it. So I've accidentally clicked on that a bunch of times. Anyway, so we're going to go straight to position here. Now this is set to 100, so it's going to move 100 units, pixels, to the right, basically. We don't want that. We want it to go down. But also, you notice that, 100 pixels? That's the size of our grid. It's almost like the numbers were purposefully done. Anyway, so we're going to set the X position to 0 on the position, and then we're going to bring up the Y until we're mirrored on the other side. Just like that. All right, so make sure Cut Marks is selected, and we're going to add another repeater on top of that. So we got repeater 2. This one is going to have 6 copies. And we're going to go transform, and we can actually just set this to 200 if we want. Boom. There we go. All right, so that's the cut marks. Ooh, I don't want to close that. I wanted to close this. There we go. All right, so we have our cut marks. Now let's create the actual pads that you solder stuff to. So with the layer selected, we're going to come in here again, and we're just going to create a straight line across this way. We're going to go about here. We want to go halfway down. Click, shift, click. That looks about even. So let's hit V to bring up the move tool, and let's bring that down. I'm actually using the arrow keys for this. It's just easier for me. All right, so our stroke, we're gonna bring that up to about 17. And the color, we're gonna change that to like a goldish brown. Something like this. Not too saturated, not too dark, not too bright, just right. All right, we're going to go with this. 33, 44, and 43. Okay, now another thing we want to do is on our shape one, let's call this pads. All right, let's open that up. And we're going to open up the stroke for this layer. So we have line cap, it's set to butt cap. And we're going to set it to round cap. There we go. Now we have a rounded off oval. All right, so we're going to take our pads layer. We're going to do the exact same thing that we did with the cut marks. It's nothing new. Make sure that pads is selected. Go to add repeater. This might get a little repetitive. All right, we're going to do 2 copies. We're going to change the transform of the repeater. Again, not the transform of the pads. We're going to set the first number, X, to 0, and we're going to bring that down. Just like that. The exact numbers might change for you, but you just want to make sure that it's right in between, in the middle of that cut mark. So, what we're going to do, can you guess what we're going to do? We are going to add another repeater to our pads, and this time we're going to do the horizontal. All right, so repeater, and we're going to do 6 copies like we did with the cut marks. And we're going to open up the transform, and we're going to eyeball this. Okay, now I want to bring something up. Whenever you're repeating something and you have to match it up with another layer, you might be tempted to just look at the next one over and then eyeball it from there. But as you go along, you notice they're less and less centered because that little bit to the left gets multiplied each time you repeat something. So basically, the more repetitions you have, the more off-center it can become. But one thing you can do, all right, is instead of looking at the next one, just ignore that. Go to the last one, and we can adjust it so that's in the center there. And each one before that last one will automatically be in the exact spot it needs to be, without having to eyeball it too much. It's a little tip for when you're lining up a lot of repeating objects. Always go look at the last one. Then you'll know every one of them will be lined up. All right, so let's create now our plus and minus signs. We're going to have one on each end. So here and over on this side. All right, so we're going to do this by doing it the same way we made, the crosshairs. the cross is for the crosshairs. We're going to do the same thing. So we're going to select the layer, go to the rectangle tool, double click on that, and we're going to set up the stroke so that it's black and with no fill. And we're going to set the stroke to 2. Let's rename our rectangle to plus dash minus. All right, so let's open up our rectangle path. We're going to unlink the chain. And for the X, we're going to set this to 0. Now I want to do something here. You see this little circle guy? That's the center point for this particular layer on our LED layer. I want to move this over to here. But if I move the position, you'll see that it stays where it is. I don't want that. See, the problem with this is we're going to have to do a rotation. So if we go to transform and open up rotation, it's not going to rotate. It's going to rotate around that center point. What we want that center point to be is in the center. All right. Let's reset that and reset our position. Now, if I move the position in the transform, that center point actually moves with it. So we're just going to move that. And we're going to bring this to 2 small blocks in, right about there. And let's bring down the size in the Y. Start bringing that down. Come on, you can do a little bit more than that at a time, please. Anyway, so we're going to move it upwards to about the center of the top strip of the LED. And then we can bring this down even further, our scale. And we want to create a nice little plus mark. So I'm going to hit Shift Command H. All right, we'll bring that down even further. And you know what? I'm going to switch this to 3. 3. I don't like that. 2.5. That's workable. All right, I'm going to bring up the scale just a little bit. All right, we're going to do 18. Why not? So we're going to take this rectangle path. We're going to change this to plus. Now what we're going to do is Command D to duplicate that. And then we're going to rename it to minus. Okay, so what I need to do actually is take this minus and Command G to group it. That way we have our own transformation here. Because if we try to rotate this, it's going to rotate both the plus and the minus. Now that the minus sign is inside a group, it's its own separate object that has its own separate rotation. So we can just set this to 90 degrees. Boom, we have our plus. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to rename this to minus group. I don't know. So we're going to make sure that minus group is selected, and we're going to add a repeater on that. We only want 2 copies of this. Now, if you notice, we've got this weird thing where the X is now the Y. So if we move it on the X, it moves on the Y axis. But that's fine. We actually don't care. We're going to put that about in the center there. Then what we're going to do is take our plus and minus layer, the entirety that includes the plus and the minus, and we're going to add a repeater on top of that. Now under the repeater 1, we're only going to have 2 copies, but this time we are going to do it horizontally. So we'll just bring this out until it matches up with this 2 blocks in from the right-hand side. Boom, just like that. All right, so that's it for the plus and minuses. And that means that's it for the actual LED graphics. But you say, well, there's more than one. Yeah, you're right. So let's repeat it. Under the LEDs, the actual shape layer right here, without any of these selected, let's add another repeater. Like I said, it's very repetitive. All right, so we're going to do 5 copies. And of course, we want to not do horizontal, but vertical. So we're going to bring this down. We're going to actually make this about, 2 blocks away from each other. Doesn't really need to be perfect, but we could do that. There we go. So now we can take this whole layer, and I'm going to move it down till it's about 2 blocks from the bottom, or, the rectangle. All right, so let's create the wires. Yeah, we'll do the wires next. All right, so we're going to deselect this layer. Make sure no layers are selected. We're going to select the pen tool, and then we're going to hit Command S because I remembered to save it. Remember to save your files constantly. All right, so we're going to go for the wires now. And actually, look, this is what it looks like with the paper texture on. The copper pads look nice. Actually, hold on. Wait, hold on, I forgot something. We're going to open up our LEDs. All right, we're going to take the cut marks and we're going to move them above the pads. Make sure it's above. Make sure you got this blue line here. That means it's going above. Because if you got the grayed out thing, that means you're adding it to that. We don't want that. All right, cut marks above. There we go. All right, that's it. So let's turn off our paper texture, make sure everything's deselected. So what I'm going to do is basically, as the video states, or as the audio states, I'm basically going to daisy chain these strips together. So I'm going to go from one block in, I'm going to create a line, and I'm holding down shift so that, well, it'll snap to certain directions, but I'm holding down shift so it only goes horizontally. So we're going to go from the plus on here to the plus down here. Oh, there we go. And that will be as simple as that. And we can always come in here and adjust this, make sure it's centered if we want. Hit V, bring up the move tool. We can move this around. All right, so I'm pointing out now that I have gone from this point to this point to make these wires. But from now on, I will be going from the second point to the first. Now that won't become clear as to why I'm doing that until the next episode, but that's fine. You can suspense. It's going to be suspenseful. All right, so we're going to, like I said, go from the bottom. Whoop, up. Now see, what happened here is we didn't click off the layer. We went immediately to creating our next one, which has connected these. So we want to undo that. We can actually just select the layer and that'll reset it basically. So let's go from the bottom here, go out and up, boom, just like this. Select the layer. I'm going to go through and just do them all and then edit them as I go along. All right, boom, boom. Now you don't even need to make these even. It might be better to actually not make them even, like these two handles line up perfectly, because, you know, it gives it more of a handmade feel, as the wires aren't going to be perfectly even either on the actual object. Anyway, there's just little things that you got to think about while just working on a project, you know? All right, so let's do the last one. There we go. That one was perfect. All right, so I'm just going to go through and hit V to bring up the move tool, and I'm just going to move these around, get them nice and centered, do all that stuff, make sure they're nice and nice. There we go. We can even, like, you know, turn these a little bit, maybe like turn some of them. Oh, look at my soldering job. All right, so we can't see these wires. We got the stroke of 2.5. We're going to change that to 17, I believe. Yes. Hello, you didn't do the other ones. All right, so we're going to select our shape layer of its entirety and change the stroke to 17. There we go. Now you're cooperating. Now we want to change the stroke to be a red, a nice red. There we go. Something like this, maybe desaturate it a little bit, just a little. Maybe turn up the brightness a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, the color values are going to shift a little bit when we add our paper texture. So, I mean, we can pick our color depending on what this is going to look like. I don't like this right here. I'm going to go to shape 1. I'm going to open that up and we can select the path 1 so that we can edit these. And I'm going to bring that back over. I'm going to bring it up like that. There we go. Something like that. All right, so we're going to rename this to red wires. Bam. And our color, I think that's fine for now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create the black wires. We're going to deselect all the layers here. And we're going to do basically what we did for the red wires. Except I'm going to start off going from the bottom to the top one. All right, so let's do that and then that. I mean, you can see how you can quickly create these things. Just kind of make them messy if you want at the beginning and go back and edit them. Remember to click the layer between each one so you make sure you're not connecting them by accident. All right, so we're going to take these. We're going to call these black wires. Whoops. Uh-oh. Yeah. Hold on. Stop! Oh my god, I'm pressing all the wrong buttons. Oh god. Oh jeez. Alright, so we're going to hit enter and type in black layers, black wires. That just threw me off. Alright, so black wires. So we need to make these black wires. So if we go to our move tool, we can change the color of our black wires. That makes sense. So we're going to make them not really black, but we're going to bring down the saturation, bring down the value to about, I would say, maybe 16%, and hit OK. So that's our black wires. All right, so let's move on straight to the battery pack. For that, we're going to create a rectangle. Make sure no layers are selected, and we're just going to do that again. There we go. Something like this. Like I said, doesn't need to be precise. But the thing we do want to do is get rid of our stroke. All right, strokes are bad. And we're going to make this the same color as our black wires, except slightly brighter. So you notice that we have an anchor point over here. And the center of our object is over here. If you hit Y on the keyboard, you can take that center point and move it around. Now, if you hold down Command, you can get it to snap to certain things. And this doesn't just pertain to the actual battery pack layer. This can pertain to any of these points on anything here. But what we want to do is go to the center and snap this to the center of the block. Just make things easier, you know? If you have a rectangle, have the center point in the center. It just makes everything easier. All right, so we're going to center that using the Align panel. All right, so what we're going to do from here is we're going to rename this to Batpack. Batpack. We're going to open it up, go to Contents, Rectangle 1, and what was I going to do? I forget what I was going to do. Oh yeah, we're going to round the edges. I'm good at this, don't worry. So we're going to open up Rectangle Path 1 and go to Roundness, and we're just going to round off the edges. No reason in particular. I think it looks nice. All right, so we got our battery pack, but we need to label it. We're going to right click, go to New, Text, and we're going to type in batteries. Now the font that I'm going to use is called Shackleton. It's not called Shackleton. It's called Province Sans Pro. We're going to make the text white, and we're going to bring this down so it's about the size of our battery pack. Now we can hit V, and we can move that around, and we're going to fit that right in the center of our battery pack. We're going to align this to the center. All right, so that's the battery pack. So what we can do is take these two layers and pre-compose them. Shift-Command-C. We'll call this batteries. There we go. Now we're actually almost done here. Now all we have left to do is create the lead wires that will go from the battery pack to our LEDs. We're going to go to our pen tool. You can hit G on the keyboard. That will bring that up. Whoops. You hit it multiple times. You got a little feathering option. Anyway, let's go with this. All right, so we're going to start at the battery pack. We're going to start about just above the center here. We're going to go out, and we're going to connect it to the positive, just like this. Now we're going to make this nice and big. Then we're going to add another point in the center here. Well, not in the center, but right there. We're going to add that. We're going to go in. We're just going to adjust some things. We're going to try and create a nice flowing curve from here to here. I think this is fine for now. We can always go back and adjust this. Stop pressing Shift when you're doing that, sir. Thank you. Now you notice we have our fill, but we don't want that. We want to get rid of that and make the stroke the same color as the black wires, as the red wires. All right, so we're going to get our pen tool. We already have our pen tool. We're going to select on the layer to complete that path. And what we're going to do is create a second one. All right, connect that to the... I'm sorry, what the... And we're going to connect that to the negative there. And we're going to add another point somewhere along here. And we'll move this, maybe, I don't know. You just want to kind of make it aesthetically pleasing, I would say. Just something that looks nice. We can take both these points and move them up because we're down. Yeah, let's move them down to here. All right, so we're going to open up the shape layer. And actually, before we do that, we're going to type in lead wires. And we're going to go to contents and our shape 2. We're going to change the color of the stroke to be the same color as the ground wires. That time I was correct. Now I'm just going to adjust these because sometimes, like if I look at this, you got this kind of like kink up here, and we could just fix that by maybe shortening this, make it a little more flowing. Maybe, I don't know, something like this. I don't know. Let's move on. We're moving on to the end because this is the end. That's the end of the episode. Actually, before I do that, in the first episode, we color-coded our beats. Now what we can do is go in and color-code our layers. So LEDs, if we clicked on this blue guy right here, we can change this to orange. And that'll make the entire layer orange, because that's the name, that's the color of the LEDs enter. And then red wires, can you guess what we're going to make them? Red. Yep. Black wires, we're going to do none. That'll show up as gray. Paper texture, we'll move that to the top. Batteries, well, that's power, so that's the cyan again. And lead wires, a mixture of red and black equals purple. Because that's what I have decided it was going to be. All right, so now we have our layers, our actual layers, organized and everything like that. All right, so that's it for this part of the episode. Stay tuned for tomorrow when the next part comes out, and it will be the animation. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.